Hi, welcome back. So that video got cut a little before I intended to finish it, but that's okay. So we were just talking about the difference between in, on, and at, and we've covered the difference between them as prepositions of place and as prepositions of time. Okay. Now now we'll look at some examples, some academic examples, and we'll also look at some other prepositions that are used. But before that, what I want to do is I want to tell you how you can improve precision with which you use prepositions. So, like I said, the best way to do this is by reading. Okay, so the more you read, the more you focus on how these prepositions are used, what they are used with, how they convey meaning in a particular way. The more you'll understand how to use them better. But there are some tricks that you can use. There are some tools that you can use, not tricks, but tools that you can use. And we'll talk about these tricks right now, these tools right now. Alright, so here are a few tools that you can use. The first one is, of course, a dictionary. You look at the word in a dictionary, for example, of or at, and give you multiple meanings of that particular word along with the usage. Okay, so with that, you'll get a basic understanding of how to use that preposition. But be careful that you look at the sentences that are used, not just at the definition, but the usage in the sentences. Okay, now the best dictionaries to look at are, of course, Oxford and Cambridge. But there are others online that you can use as well. You can use Merriam-Webster, but that's an American dictionary, so maybe some meanings are slightly more how they're used in the US. Dictionary.com is also pretty reliable, but stick to Oxford and Cambridge is what I would suggest. Now, another type of dictionary is called a collocation dictionary. A collocation dictionary usually gives you words, right? So, one example is www.ozdic.com. Now, if you go here and if you type, this is something that this example is something I've just pulled up online. So you can go and try it out, see if it works. It's supposed to give you words that occur together. Otherwise, go to Google and search for other collocation dictionaries, and they'll give you some words that are often found together. Because some prepositions are used with some words and not used with some other words. Another thing that you can do is go to a corpus. Okay? A lot of universities have come up with corpuses, and what they basically do is, and this is one example of a corpus. You can just type this out and search for it. What they basically do is they've uploaded all their papers, all the research that's published, all the articles that have been written, and they've uploaded this as raw data, and they've come up with some kind of analytics to see how many times a particular phrase is found together. For example, you say something like on the other hand, right? On the one hand, this is happening. On the other hand, that is happening. Now, if you don't know this preposition, right? You know something. There's a preposition in the other hand, so you're not sure if it's at the other hand or on the other hand. For example, you can go type at the other hand on their search engine and see how many times they have found or they managed to find this particular phrase at the other hand. So you'll find that maybe this is hardly ever found, or you could see that maybe people have used it 2 or 3 times. So which means that it's not very frequently used. But if you go and type on the other hand, you'll find thousands of results that come up over there. So that is one way of finding out which combination is more likely to be used in academic writing and which one is preferred. That's one. Another thing that you can do is you can Google it. Google the phrase and see how many search results you get. You get at the other hand, how many search results, on the other hand, how many search results. It'll give you a fairly good idea of which one is more correct. And the next thing that you can do is you can type, there's this NetSpeak. So www.netspeak.org. You just go there and you can. So what you do here is, if you're not sure of a particular phrase, for example, you don't know on the other hand, right? So you put a question mark and you say the other hand. And NetSpeak will basically give you results, possible results for what words you can use over here before the other hand, based on what thousands of people have been using online. So it's a software that helps you. Okay, so these are some of the tools that can help you, but again, despite these tools, I think you must still do a manual proofread. You should go to your professor or some seniors or someone who understands English really well, or a native speaker, someone preferably who's got knowledge of academic writing, scientific writing, research writing as well, and then cross check. Also go back to your readings and see if these phrases are found in those readings. So that's how you can make sure that you're using your language correctly. These are some tools. Now let's look at a few more examples. All right, so a lot of times you'll find that prepositions that are used in academic writing are not very simple, right? And there is no way that you can have a generalized rule for how prepositions are used and what they mean. So every phrase means something else, right? So you have to. So we'll be sharing some documents with you, which give you these kind of examples, and they give you sample sentences on how to use them, etc. And it's, like I said, the best way to understand how to use these prepositions is by reading, right? And thankfully, some of these documents have summarized and have collated some of the most commonly used phrases, because, like I said, in English there are hundreds of prepositions and phrases that are used. You don't have to learn all of them. In your discipline, there'll be some that are very frequently used, and some of these I've taken as examples over here. I've taken 5 examples. So accustomed to, right? So that is something that can be. So it's a phrasal preposition, right? You can use these 2 words and they function as a preposition. So one example is scientists are now accustomed to working from home, right? So this is one example. Or you can say composed of. So one example of composed of is the culture was composed of cells and tissues, right? Then we have in accordance with. We have performed the experiments in accordance with existing norms. Then we have decision to. The decision to mix the 2 substances together was taken unanimously. Researchers' interest in virology is increasing. Okay, so now again, I'm sorry. So these are not phrasal prepositions. Now these are prepositions that are commonly used with words before, right? So when you say accustomed, you know that the word to is what comes after accustomed most of the time. It won't be accustomed with, it's accustomed to. So that's something that you need to understand. Composed of, right? One word that's often confused with composed of is comprise. With comprise, you don't use of. If you say this is comprised of, that's not right. It comprises. So the culture comprises cells and tissues. So you can either say is composed of, or you can say it comprises. Okay, with comprise you don't use of. Then we have in accordance with. Now this is what we call a phrasal preposition over here. This is but again, when you say accordance, it's always with. It's not in accordance to. So that's something that you need to learn. It's something that you can only get once you read. Okay. Decision to. Again, with decision, it's usually used with to. Interest in. Yeah. So these are combinations that you have to learn. Alright, so we are just going to look at, so like I said, there is no shortcut to this, right? There's no rule that will, it's not like tenses or subject verb agreement where it's just logic based, and there are very few rules that you need to understand and then everything is clear, right? It's not like that. With prepositions, there are so many nuances, so many variations that you just have to know it. And in order to know what is right, you have to read, you have to solve exercises, answer a lot of questions, figure out what the logic is, why something is right, why something is wrong, read peer-reviewed journals, understand how prepositions are used, and when you write, get your essay proofread, because a lot of times if you don't use the right prepositions, you're not conveying the right meaning, and academic writing is all about conveying the exact meaning. Okay, now we're doing whatever we can. We're going to share many links with you which have exercises, which have explanations, which have pictures demonstrating how prepositions should be used. So do all of that, and of course we're going to have an evaluation next week. Probably not on Monday, because we're going to give you some time to revise this. Probably share maybe another lesson or 2 on prepositions to help you understand this better. But on Thursday we'll have another evaluation, and hopefully you'll be able to get a lot of the questions right by then. Okay, so just understand that prepositions are very important, and so what we're going to do now is we're just going to look at some errors that people commonly make, and we'll try and understand some logic as to why they're wrong, why these sentences are wrong, and how we can fix them, and hopefully you'll get some intuition with respect to figuring out your errors. Okay, first one is we explained them, the purpose of the study. Remember, we talked about transitive and intransitive verbs in class, right? Transitive verbs are verbs that can directly take objects. Intransitive verbs cannot take objects directly, so they either exist by themselves, or if you have to take an object, they need a preposition in between, right? So if you use a verb transitively, that becomes an error, right? And usually that's because of a missing preposition. So here it should be we explained to them, because explain is an intransitive verb. You can't explain it in this sense. If you explain someone, it means you're explaining their characteristics. So if I have to explain XYZ, my friend Sham, for example, if I have to explain Sham, I have to tell you, like, this is what Sham is. He's a complicated person, he is very cheerful, and he likes fishing. So I'm explaining, it's more like describing. You can't even explain Ram that way or Sham that way, right? So that meaning is different. Like, I can explain a concept to you, but I cannot explain you or explain them. So it should be explained to them. So in this meaning, it is an intransitive verb. So you need a preposition. So that's one way to prevent preposition errors. Use transitive verbs transitively and intransitive verbs intransitively. One way to find out whether they're transitive or intransitive is when you look at a dictionary, it'll give you a TR or INTR. Some will give you a T versus I. So T means transitive, I means intransitive, right? So that will help you understand how to use it. The study comprises of. So like I said in just a few minutes ago, comprise is something that you don't use with of, right? The study comprises 4 components. Yeah, you can say is comprised of. That's fine. If you say it is comprised of, fine, but you can't say comprises of. Okay, we agreed to. Now, agree to versus with. This is another common error that a lot of people make. You agree to do something. But if you use to, the next word should ideally be a verb. Agreed to write a paper. We agreed to dance. We agreed to conduct, right? But if you use with, then the next word has to be a noun. We agreed with the idea. We agreed with our supervisor. Okay? So with is followed by nouns, to is followed by verbs. Just remember that when it comes to agree. The data samples were found inside the line. Right? Inside. You can't have something inside a line. A line is not an enclosed area, right? So what is the right preposition that you can use? You can say we found something within the line. Within the boundary of the line. So within is a better preposition to use over here. Then we have the research has been on from March. Okay? From March. You can't say from March. The right preposition to use is since March. Okay? So I'll stop here. I'll stop it because we've got 2 lessons now. I'm going to upload both these lessons today, so you can watch part 1 and part 2. But in part 3, I'm going to just do a little more analysis like this. I'm going to post common errors that people make, and I'm going to correct them and explain the logic as to why they're wrong. And in the meantime, please read the links please go through the links that have been shared. Please go through the exercises that have been shared with you. And if you have any questions, please write to us. And another thing, I think Nandan has sent you an email. He wrote the other day And I saw one response. Someone wanted a revision of subject verb agreement and tenses, so we'll do that. I'll come up with a video for subject verb agreement and tenses, one for SVA and one for tenses. But if there's anything else, in research writing, it could be referencing, it could be punctuation, it could be how to organize your ideas, how to write a research proposal, whatever it is, because we've got limited number of days now. We've got till the end of April to finish all these lessons. So whatever it is that you feel has not been emphasized upon, you're struggling with in your research writing, this is the time. Because what I understand is that a lot of not really giving you study material for PhD students, so you're largely free. And while I understand that internet is a challenge, but you can watch these at your own pace, and you can always buffer them, download them, and watch them later. So let me know if you have any request. Please hit a reply all to Nandan's email, and we'll give you lessons on that, and we'll send you study material as well. Okay, so good luck, be safe, and there will be another part. I'm going to try and cover more prepositional errors and explain why they're wrong, and try and cover as much as possible. But like I said, prepositions is one concept where I can keep explaining, but there will be more examples that come up, right? So the best way to overcome this is to read as much as possible. Make a note of how these prepositions are used when you're reading them. Note them down in a journal that you have. Make a list of prepositions. Write down these example sentences that you find when you read, and then when you write, you can pick from there and use those sentences, use those phrases. So your chances of making errors go down greatly. All right. So good luck, and we'll see you soon. Be safe.